A child's silence is often a parent's greatest failure, but a parent's silence is usually their greatest sacrifice. The apartment is immaculate, every surface reflecting a life built on silent toil. The soft glow of pendant lights illuminates polished countertops, casting long shadows over the empty spaces. In the corner, an antique clock ticks relentlessly, its rhythmic sound filling the silence that sits heavy between father and son. There is a noticeable stillness in the air, a quiet that speaks louder than any conversation could. The father sits at his desk, his hands firm on the edges, his knuckles white, as if holding on to the life he has worked so hard to create. He is distant, lost in the confines of his thoughts, but his eyes betray him, glancing out of the window every so often, his gaze unfocused, as if searching for something he cannot quite name. The son stands near the bookshelf, his fingers grazing the spines of books he never reads, pretending to be absorbed, yet his posture is stiff, his chest tight. Neither of them speaks. Neither of them dares to acknowledge the void that stretches between them. The air is thick with unspoken words, those things that have been left unsaid for far too long. The father remembers the years he spent building this life, long nights away from home, missing birthdays, anniversaries, even simple dinners with the family. The sacrifices were supposed to bring comfort, security, a better future. Yet now, in the quiet of this perfectly curated home, he wonders if it was all worth it. The son, still standing by the shelf, recalls his own childhood, how he always felt the absence of his father's presence. He remembers waiting at the kitchen table, his hand gripping a fork that trembled as he waited for a conversation, for a moment of connection, but the table remained empty. His father's success, his sacrifices, were invisible to him then. Now, they loom large, towering over him like something he cannot escape. He wonders if he can ever be enough, if his efforts to succeed in the way his father envisioned will ever be seen as truly his own. A sudden cough breaks the silence, and both men flinch. The father's throat tightens, a sharp, painful reminder of the years that have passed without ever truly speaking. He stands, his back creaking, as though the weight of his unspoken regrets has built up in the very bones that once carried him forward. He turns slowly to face the son, whose eyes are cast down, unwilling to meet his gaze. The truth is undeniable now. All the years of working, of being absent, of sacrificing personal connections for the sake of success, have brought them to this point. A hollow home, a relationship fractured by time and unspoken expectations. The father's heart aches, but there is a quiet resolution in his eyes. He has come to understand that he has been running from the very thing he needed the most, the simple, unspoken love that had always been just out of reach. His shoulders slouch under the weight of this realization, and for the first time, the mask slips. He has given everything for this life, but what he failed to give was himself. The son looks up finally, their eyes meeting for the first time in years. There is no anger in his gaze, only a quiet, unspoken understanding, a shared grief that lingers between them. Neither speaks, but in that silence, they both find something they have been searching for their entire lives, the beginning of healing. The father walks slowly across the room, the sound of his footsteps muffled by the plush carpet beneath his feet. His gaze drifts once more to the large window, where the city lights glitter in the distance, indifferent to the turmoil inside. The air is still, the silence punctuated only by the occasional hum of the refrigerator, a reminder of the life he has created in his absence. His hand reaches out, brushing against the cold glass, feeling the chill seep into his skin. He wonders if he's the only one in this house who knows what it's like to feel frozen, to stand still in time while everything around him continues to move. He had always believed that the sacrifices he made would ensure a better life, that this life of luxury would be a reflection of his love, but now he sees it for what it is, a gilded cage. He turns back toward his desk, the piles of paperwork that once filled him with purpose now a distant memory. He runs a finger along the edge of a family photo, his hand trembling slightly as he studies the image of his younger self, so full of hope, standing next to his wife and child, a time when everything still felt possible. The weight of the years presses in on him. He doesn't recognize the man in the photo anymore. The hope is gone, replaced by an emptiness he can't shake. As his eyes move across the room, They fall upon the chair across from his desk, the one where his son once sat, filled with dreams, asking questions about life and love, things that the father never had time to answer. He can still see him there, eager to learn, to connect, but there had always been something else that took priority: work, success, survival. The years of missed opportunities flood his mind now, and the regret comes rushing in like a tide he can't stop. He remembers the late nights when his son would sit at the kitchen table, alone, hoping for his attention, hoping for just one moment where his father would see him for who he truly was. But he never did. The father's chest tightens, the weight of this realization suffocating him. He never knew how to balance it all. He never knew how to be both the provider and the father. He never realized that in giving everything for them, he had given nothing at all. The harsh reality of his failure stings as he turns away from the photo, his gaze landing on the door to his son's room, still closed, still untouched. He wonders if the door will ever open again, if they will ever be able to rebuild the relationship they lost. His mind races with all the things he should have said, all the moments he should have been present for, but it's too late now. The moment has passed. And yet, something shifts inside him. He feels a longing, a deep desire to make it right, to finally step out from behind the mask of success and show his son that he is more than just a provider. The realization comes slowly, like the first light of dawn breaking through the darkness. He doesn't know how to fix the years of damage, but he knows that it starts here, in this very moment. With a quiet exhale, he stands up, the decision settling in his heart. It's time to step into the unknown, to let go of the past, and embrace whatever may come next. He turns toward his son's room, his heart heavy but resolute, knowing that this is the first step toward healing, even if the road ahead is uncertain. The father stands outside his son's room, his hand hovering over the doorknob. He hesitates for a moment, the weight of the years pressing down on him. The house feels colder now, despite the warmth of the light that pours through the windows. It's as though the walls themselves are holding their breath, waiting for what will come next. He can hear the faint hum of the city outside, distant and indifferent, but inside, the silence is thick, suffocating. His fingers tighten around the cold brass of the doorknob, the act itself feeling monumental. With a deep breath, he turns it, the door creaking open with a sound that feels like the beginning of something long overdue. The room is just as he remembers, sparse, clean, but somehow empty. The bed is neatly made, the shelves orderly, but the space feels lifeless, like a forgotten corner of the world. His son is sitting at the desk, facing the wall, his back turned. The father's throat tightens as he watches the figure hunched over, still and silent. There's something heartbreaking about the way his son seems to be retreating into the quiet, closing off any chance of connection. The years of absence have created this distance between them, a gulf that feels impossible to cross. The father wants to speak, but the words get stuck in his throat, the heaviness of the past choking him. He remembers the last time they had a conversation, how it ended in awkward silence, how he walked away without looking back. How many times had he walked away from his son? Too many. The truth of it stings in his chest, sharp and relentless. He steps into the room, the floorboards creaking under his weight, and the sound seems to break the stillness. The son doesn't turn, doesn't acknowledge his presence. There's a deep sadness in the way he sits, shoulders slumped, as though he's given up. The father stands there for a moment, unsure of what to do, unsure of what he can even say at this point. He remembers when his son used to run to him, when he was the one who held the world in his hands, who could make everything better with a simple word. But that was a long time ago. Now, there's nothing but silence, nothing but the empty space between them. The father swallows hard, trying to gather the strength to break the silence, but the words still don't come. The room feels colder still, the air thick with the weight of everything unsaid. And then, his son speaks, his voice low and flat. "I don't need you to fix it," he says. The words hit the father like a punch to the gut, and for a moment, he's lost, unable to respond. He doesn't need to fix it. His son doesn't want him to fix it. The realization is a gut-wrenching one, the final blow to the fragile illusion he's been holding onto for so long. He thought he could make it right, thought he could make up for all the years of absence, but now he sees it. His son doesn't need him to fix it, doesn't need him to erase the past. He just needs him to be there. The weight of that truth settles in, heavy and undeniable. The father takes a step forward, the first real step he's taken toward his son in years. And for the first time in a long while, he feels like he's not carrying the burden of the world on his shoulders. He's just a man, standing in front of his son, finally ready to face what's been waiting for him all along. The silence between them doesn't feel as suffocating now. It's different, somehow lighter. The father doesn't know what comes next, doesn't know how to fix what's broken, but he knows this. He doesn't have to fix everything. All he has to do is be present. And that, for now, is enough. The father stands still in the doorway, the silence between them heavier than before. His son's words hang in the air, more profound than any silence he's endured. I don't need you to fix it. The father feels the sting of truth, deep in his chest. He had spent so many years trying to fix everything, thinking that his wealth, his success, would somehow make up for the years he had lost. He had mistaken provision for presence, his work for love, his silence for wisdom. But now, standing here in this room, his son's words start to unravel everything he thought he understood. It is not about fixing the past. It is about being here, now, in this moment, with his son, and finally seeing him for who he is. The weight of this realization crashes over him, a flood of understanding that feels as if it is drowning him. He steps into the room, moving slowly, deliberately, as if each step is a decision, a commitment to something different, something new. His hand reaches out, trembling slightly, and he places it gently on his son's shoulder. The touch is tentative, unsure, but it is there. For the first time in years, he is not rushing to fix anything. He is just present. The son doesn't pull away. For a brief moment, their eyes meet. It's brief, but in that moment, there is an understanding between them, a shared recognition of all that has been left unsaid. The father feels his chest tighten as the weight of everything he had been running from presses in on him. His heart aches, but it's not the pain of regret anymore. It's something different. It's the pain of finally seeing the truth. And in that truth, there is a strange kind of relief. He's not running anymore. He's not hiding behind a mask of success. He's not trying to fix anything. He's just here, just as he is. The son, who had been so distant, so closed off, finally lets out a quiet breath. He doesn't say anything, but the tension in his shoulders eases just a little. The silence between them is no longer suffocating. It's no longer a chasm, but a bridge, fragile, but real. The father feels the first flicker of hope in years. He knows there's no quick fix. There are no easy answers. But this is a beginning. A quiet moment of connection. A small step toward healing. He doesn't know what comes next, but for the first time, he's not afraid of it. For the first time, he's ready to be present. And that, he realizes, is enough. The father sits down beside his son, the air still and thick between them. But now, the silence feels different. It's not the same as before. It's a quiet that speaks of understanding, a stillness that no longer holds weight, but rather holds promise. The father looks at his son, his heart heavy with years of missed moments, and for the first time, he sees him, not as the child he failed to protect, but as the person he's become, someone capable of forgiveness, even if unspoken. The son, still, doesn't say much, but his body, tense and guarded, starts to relax just a little. His hands, which had been clenched in frustration, now rest loosely on his lap. The father notices the slight shift, the tiny crack in the armor that had surrounded his son for so long. For a long while, neither of them speaks. The father wonders what to say, how to begin the process of undoing the years of emotional neglect. But then, in the stillness, he realizes that perhaps there are no words that will ever truly fix what has been broken. Words had always been easy. Promises, assurances, explanations, but actions were harder. He had never been good at showing up when it mattered most. But now, here, with his son sitting beside him, he realizes that showing up now is enough. For the first time, he doesn't feel the need to justify himself. He doesn't feel the compulsion to make everything right in one grand gesture. He simply wants to be here, present. The son finally shifts, turning his body ever so slightly, just enough to show that he is aware of his father's presence, not fully open, but willing to accept that something has changed. The father, his voice quieter than it has ever been, finally speaks. I know I've failed you, he says, his words heavy. but without the usual need to defend himself. The son's gaze flickers to his father, but he doesn't speak. The father continues, "I've always tried to give you everything, but I never gave you what you really needed. I never gave you me." The son doesn't respond at first, his eyes on the floor, but then, slowly, he lifts his head. There's no anger, no bitterness in his gaze, only a quiet understanding. It's a painful understanding, but it's real. The father's heart aches as the truth settles over him. He can never undo the past. There is no going back. The years lost can never be regained. But in this moment, he doesn't feel the weight of his mistakes as heavily as before. It's not because they're gone. It's because he finally sees them for what they are. He's not perfect, and maybe he never will be. But he's here, now, and that's all he can offer. The son turns slightly, just enough, for the father to catch a glimpse of the faintest flicker of something softer in his eyes, resignation, acceptance, perhaps even a hint of forgiveness. And for the first time in years, the father allows himself to feel what he hasn't felt in so long. Hope. Hope that, while the past is gone, the future doesn't have to be defined by it. It can be different. It can be better. Slowly, the father's hand reaches out, not with the intention to fix anything, but simply to connect. This is what he has to offer now. His presence, his willingness to listen, to be with his son, not as the man who has all the answers, but as the man who is finally learning to ask the right questions. And as their hands brush briefly, the father feels a flicker of something new, an understanding, a shared moment of silent reconciliation. It's not perfect, and it doesn't erase the pain, but it's a beginning. The start of something different. The start of healing. The father watches as his son slowly stands up from the table, the movement deliberate, unhurried, as if deciding whether or not to break the quiet space between them. For a moment, it feels like the room itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next shift, the next step. The son walks over to the window again, his figure framed by the fading light of the evening. There's no rush, no tension. The father sees him differently now, no longer a young man hardened by years of resentment, but a person, fragile, struggling, trying to make sense of everything that has happened. The weight of the years between them is still there, but the air feels less suffocating. The son doesn't turn to face him, but speaks softly, his words quiet, like he's testing the sound of them. "I've been angry for so long. I didn't even know how to stop." The father's heart clenches at the honesty in his voice. The rawness of it, the vulnerability that neither of them had allowed before. The father had always been the one holding everything in, pretending that his silence and his work were enough to provide for his family. But now, he hears his son's anger, and he realizes it's not just about the years of absence. It's about the loss of connection, the slow erosion of love over time, buried beneath the weight of expectations and silent sacrifices. "I know," the father says, his voice rough, cracking under the weight of his own regret. "I know, and I'm sorry. I wasn't there when you needed me. I wasn't there for all the things that mattered." The son stands still for a long moment, his back turned, looking at the world outside through the window. The father wonders if his words are enough, wonders if the damage is too deep to be repaired, if the silence they've shared for so long has left scars that can never be undone. But then, the son turns around, and their eyes meet. The father doesn't say anything more. There's nothing more to say. The silence between them isn't empty anymore. It's full of something new, something fragile, something that holds the weight of their past, but also the possibility of something different. The son walks back to the table, slowly, deliberately, as if testing the waters, as if allowing himself to be vulnerable for the first time in years. He sits down again, and the father follows, sitting across from him. They sit together in the quiet, the space between them still present, but it feels different now. There's no longer the distance of years, of unspoken words, of things left unsaid. There's a recognition now, an understanding that while they can never undo the past, they can still move forward. Slowly, the father reaches across the table, his hand trembling just slightly, and places it on his son's hand. The touch is gentle, careful, not forcing anything, but offering what he can, the recognition that he is here, now, in this moment, with him. The son looks at him, his eyes softening, and for the first time in years, the father feels like he's finally seeing his son. The journey ahead won't be easy, but it will be theirs to take together. The father leans back in his chair, his eyes fixed on his son, the weight of everything they've shared settling in the space between them. There is no rush, no need for words, just the quiet presence of two people who are slowly starting to understand each other, maybe for the first time. The silence isn't heavy anymore, but calm, almost comforting. The son, still, doesn't speak, but his eyes seem different now, less guarded, as if the walls he'd built around himself are starting to crumble, piece by piece. The father doesn't try to fill the silence with words anymore. He knows the most important thing is simply being here, showing up. It's been years since they've shared a moment like this. Years since the father could sit in the same room with his son and not feel the sting of regret or the need to apologize for everything he had done wrong. But now, sitting across from him, he feels a different kind of peace. He doesn't expect things to change overnight. He knows that the road ahead will be long and that healing doesn't happen in an instant. But there's something in the air now, something subtle and undeniable, that feels like a beginning. The father places his hands on the table, feeling the cool wood beneath his palms, grounding himself in this moment. The son looks at him, his gaze steady but still cautious, as if testing the waters. The father sees it now, the quiet struggle, the weight of the years that have passed, the emotional distance they both carried. And for the first time, he understands that it's not about fixing everything. It's about accepting the brokenness, the pain, and allowing themselves to simply be together in it. There are no words that can undo the past, no actions that can erase the hurt. But the father feels something shift in him, a recognition that the most important thing he can do now is to be present, to be the father his son needs, not the one he thought he should be. The son doesn't move at first, just sits there, still, processing everything. Then, finally, he speaks, his voice quiet but full of emotion. "I don't know what happens next," he says, his eyes searching his father's face for something, maybe reassurance, maybe understanding. The father's heart aches at the rawness of the words. He wants to say something profound, something that will make everything right, but he knows there's nothing to say. All he can offer is the truth. "Neither do I," he replies softly, "but I'm here. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." The son looks at him, and for a moment, there's a flicker of something in his eyes. Maybe it's hope, maybe it's uncertainty, but it's something. And for the father, that something is enough. They sit there, side by side, in the quiet, with nothing more to prove, nothing more to fix. The road ahead is uncertain, but they're taking it together, one step at a time. The father wakes up early the next morning, the quiet hum of the city outside breaking the stillness of the room. He sits on the edge of the bed, his fingers brushing against the cool sheets. It's a new day, but there's no sense of urgency, no rush to fix anything. The weight of the past is still there, but it no longer feels like a burden he has to carry alone. He stands and walks quietly down the hall, pausing in front of his son's door. The faint light from the early morning filters through the cracks in the door, a soft glow that feels almost peaceful. The father hesitates, unsure if he should knock or wait, but then he slowly opens the door. The son is sitting at his desk, staring at the blank page in front of him, lost in thought. He doesn't look up when the father enters, but there's no tension in his body, no resistance. It's as if he's finally come to terms with the fact that the past is the past, and there's nothing either of them can do to change it. The father walks into the room and sits on the edge of the bed, keeping some distance but staying present. For a long while, neither of them speaks. The son finally looks up, his eyes tired but steady. He doesn't smile, but there's a quiet acceptance in his gaze, a recognition that they are both different now. "I don't know how to make things right," the son says, his voice low but calm. The father nods, his own voice soft. "Neither do I," he admits, "but we're here. That's enough. For now." The son looks at him, his eyes searching, as if weighing the truth of his father's words. There's no grand resolution, no sudden shift. But for the first time, there's a sense of understanding, of mutual recognition. The father knows that they have a long road ahead of them, that healing doesn't happen overnight. But for the first time, he feels a sense of peace in the journey. The son's gaze softens, and for a brief moment, they share a look, an unspoken acknowledgment of what they've both endured and what they're both still learning. The father gets up, walking over to the window, his hand resting on the cool glass, looking out at the horizon. The son follows him, standing beside him, both of them silently watching the world beyond, no longer carrying the weight of expectations or regret, but simply being. The sun rises higher in the sky, casting a warm, golden light into the room. The shadows fade, and for the first time in years, the father feels like he can breathe. There's no need for grand gestures or empty promises. All they have is the present, and that is enough. They stand together in the quiet, ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that the road ahead won't be easy, but it will be theirs to walk together, side by side.